There's going to be a bit of traffic noise this morning because it's summertime and people are digging out their big Harleys and driving them to work in the morning along this county road. Sometimes like you'll get a herd of them going by, like a literal herd of Harleys going by. It's really loud. But it's still not as loud as living in a downtown urban center. But anyway, this show is about audio, about sound, about music, and how music impacts art, and how artists use music to create art. The art and music episode, the relationship between art and music, here on the Cannabis Goldsmith. This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the Cannabis Goldsmith. So most of us that are older than Gen Z have a different relationship to music than the Gen Z people and beyond do. Now, what I mean by that is that the technology has changed, of course, but more than that, society has changed. So the youth of today are not too fond of going to concerts or going to music festivals. They're not too fond of getting into groups, into large groups. I mean, they do, a few do, but not like previous generations. So there's been a cultural change. The music is always changing. The kids of today are not behaving like the kids of yesterday when it comes to music, and how music impacts the formative parts of their lives. Now, granted, there'll be academic studies about this in the future where historians will look back at music and see how it changed in relationship to the technology and how the culture changed as a result of the technology change. For example, smartphones were introduced and that changed everything. Music started getting shorter. Attention spans started getting shorter. People didn't go out as much and rather would sit looking at their phone and consuming the content from the phone instead of standing out in a field with somebody dancing. So historians of the future will look at that. Now, I'm not going to pass judgment on which is better because I don't know. The Gen Z people on the couch with their phone, that experience is, I'm sure, is as fulfilling as my experiences were as a youth with music experienced live. I'm sure it's fulfilling the same need. But I can't speak to them, but I can speak to, let's say, generations older than Gen Z. So that's who this show is for. But I've been thinking a lot about music and my relationship with music. You know, I'm trying to raise money to digitize a huge photographic archive of Canadian music photography. It's photos I shot for the magazine I published in the 90s called Tribe, which was an electronic music and DJ magazine and rave magazine, kind of like Mix Mag, Interview, and Face all rolled into one, with a little bit of Project X thrown in there. If you've ever seen that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I launched a music magazine and then all this photography I have, trying to digitize that. And I guess that project, it's still ongoing. Make a donation at preservethebeat.com. Just saying, we've only got a few weeks left to raise the money to digitize this collection of photography. But the whole idea behind going to events to experience music has changed. In our case, oh, listen to the geese. I thought it would be Harleys, but it's Canadian geese, flocks flying by. Now, you might be thinking, what is the relationship between music and art? Well, I'm going to tell you what it is for me and what I kind of observe in the culture. I'm not an expert. I'm just an artist and a photographer and a writer and just generally a jack of all art trades dude who and jewelry designer who uses music in his art. Okay, I'll tell you how it all started. This won't take long. This will just take a second. So especially if you're driving, this will be great to listen to. In 1974, I had my first concert experience. I was accidentally, or on purpose, wasted on edibles. And I was wandering around this stadium in Kinshasa, Zaire in 1974. I was pretty high, and I'd left my escorts in the stands, and I wandered down towards the front of the stage to see where all the action was. James Brown came on stage, and it changed my life. And I was there at the front, right at the front. I could feel the sweat coming off him when he was on stage. I was standing by the TV cameraman who was filming the event in this stadium filled with like what seemed like 40,000 screaming Zaireois because this was their god, right? And I was a little kid at the front of the stage watching this, and that changed my life. It changed my life in a lot of ways. First, it allowed me to appreciate R&B and music created by Black people. It allowed me to connect. Well, I was living in Africa at the time, so it allowed me to connect Africa to North American music, or music created in North America, in some way in my brain. And it also taught me how music can cross cultural boundaries. Like here, I was pretty much, there were like 50 white people in the whole stadium, and I was one of them, right? 50 or 100 white people out of like tens of thousands of people. And we were all enjoying this music. And it was all, this is what music does. It unifies people, right? Now, granted, there is types of music that divide people, like anthems and stuff like that. But generally speaking, music unites people and brings us together. It's a software. I think music is a kind of cultural software that allows humans to commune, to get on the same page, right? Like, I noticed it in Africa. I was in this remote village in the Congo called Kinkala. I mean, you can find it on a map. It's in the middle of nowhere. Actually, now there's probably buildings there, but when I was there was nothing. There was like a kind of a Salvation Army missionary outpost. And the reason I was there is that my parents were visiting these two young women who were nurses at this missionary station or whatever in Africa. And this was in the early 70s. The people in this community would get together and dance and play drums. And in the evenings, in particular, when dinner, I guess, was eaten or over or being cooked, it would start, and then you would hear drums, and drums would be coming from different areas, and eventually it would all come from sort of one area, and people would be, not necessarily dancing, but swaying or just listening, right? And the thing I noticed, and I took a photograph of this woman had a baby in Africa. In this part of Africa, the women would put the baby on their back and then use a length of fabric to create kind of like a backpack with the baby in it, right? And they'd wrap this fabric around themselves and tuck it in, and the baby's head would be sticking out on the back of the mother, right? You'd see this head. Anyway, I was looking at this baby, and I could hear the drums in the trees in the background, and I had a camera with me, and like a film camera. But I was looking at this baby, and it was in the bush, in the jungle, basically. I could hear drums coming through the trees, and this baby started nodding in time with the music, right? And I was looking at this baby, and he was looking at me, and we were both nodding to the drums, right? And this was music. music is part of us, right? It's part of all of us. It's part of what we need to survive as humans on this planet. We need this. This is a soothing thing. This is a community thing. This connects us to people. And you often see it in music subcultures, like the rave scene, for example. When I covered that scene in Canada, the rise and fall of it basically in Canada, you would see it. People would get together over a type of music, and it would draw them together into a community, right? Or here where I am now, the guy who delivers my firewood for the wood stove, Richard, he's much older than I am. I'm ancient, and he's even older and more spry than me. This guy, anyway, he's in the 70s or 80s or whatever, but he's like Dolph Lundgren, this guy. Anyway, he's always saying, you should come to the square dance, right? Or the dance he goes country dancing, line dancing, or I don't know, some kind of, it's country. I'm not a country dude. So I always politely say, I appreciate he's trying to connect me more into the community here. I'm using other ways to connect into the community. But if I didn't have those other ways, this would be an ideal way to go to one of these things, these music-driven events locally, and then connect with the community, and we could all commune together over the music and become closer instead of one side playing an anthem and the other side playing an anthem. If you get what I'm saying. Even here in the country, Richard's invitation to come dancing with him and his wife and the rest, a whole bunch of other people who like that kind of thing, was an invitation to community. This is like going to a concert. The young people don't understand, and I didn't at the time, is that going to a concert is kind of an invitation to community. Now, where's the art coming in? You're saying the show's halfway over and you haven't even spoken about art yet. Okay, I'm getting to the art part. The music brings the people together and creates these experiences in the mind, these formative experiences that may not be related to how it actually was. Like the memory changes over the years or whatever. But the thing remains, there's a stake driven, this warm musical stake is driven into the soul of the person at this festival, and they become connected to that moment in time, and it travels with them their whole life, and it influences the way they think about everything, or in my case, the way I thought about music, the way I thought about art, the way my career turned out in midlife, starting a DJ Culture magazine, and covering jungle DJs and warehouse party house music, like all this stuff that was like standing as a kid in that stadium with 40,000 screaming Zairwa and James Brown on stage. It's a similar experience, less intense, but it's still there. And I'll tell you, I've been in warehouse parties where a good DJ is playing and a crowd is there dancing. Even if you can't even see who you're dancing with because it's so dark in there. There's something happening that's creating community right there. And also this golden stake, I call it. Now, don't think of it like vampires, like wooden stake. Think of it, this is a golden, let's call it a golden thread that we become entangled in when we go to that party, or we go to that music festival, or somebody invites us to this concert, and we wind up liking country music for the rest of our lives. This kind of stuff happens. It's a software. It's really hard to describe. A software, it is not long lasting. Software is very transient, but this seems to be more robust and permanent. So instead of a golden stake, let's call it a golden thread that connects us all together when we attend one of these music events or festivals or concerts, or in a dripping basement with a techno DJ going really hard. Like this This does something to us on a deep level. Now for the art part. For me, it was doing photography around DJ culture and stuff. For other people, it inspires painting ideas. And I know in my case, it inspires jewelry designs now. I don't think about going out and photographing DJs anymore when I listen to a particular kind of music. But when I'm listening to a particular kind of music, it makes me think about what products I should design differently. Now, I'm not designing it for the musician. I'm not designing it for the people who like that type of music, but it inspires me to design a product somehow on a deep, deep level. But it's all about building community too. And I think this community has to be there in order for these threads to entangle us, these golden threads of music, this software, this important kind of cultural software. I think we need to get entangled with it, and we need to figure out ways to work with it in our lives after that magical experience, that magical, whether it's Taylor Swift at something, or somebody's going to maybe experience that now, and in 20 years from now they'll be starting a cosmetics company based on a vibe they felt at that concert or something. This is how it works, right? Music works in mysterious ways. For artists, it pulls artists in different directions. We're not even aware of it most of the time, or all the time. It's on a kind of unconscious or subconscious level that music impacts us. And now I know a lot of artists listen to music when they work. This is another kind of music, using music in art. I know when I work, I like particular types of music. I like music that I can accelerate the beats per minute. If I want a faster workflow, I just play more quicker music. I play like a faster house tracks or something banging, right? Then I'll be at the workbench, filing the silver and faster to match the beat of the music. Other times I'll throw on some acid jazz, or I'll throw on something random, right? And then just let it evolve. But I find that I don't like the random stuff playing when I'm working, when I'm doing serious work. I find that I like the tried and true stuff that I've heard before, that I feel comfortable with, that I know what's going to happen with it, so I'm not freaking out if some new music is suddenly introduced to me while I'm doing creative work. That's not going to disturb the atmosphere of the work. So I think a lot of artists will listen to stuff they're really comfortable with when they're working, to try and generate ambience or whatever, or at least not to conflict with the creative work they're trying to do, the art, right? Say they're painting or making a sculpture or something. On the other hand, you can do it on purpose. You can play punk and you hate punk, and you could be playing it while you work to see how that impacts your art. I mean, artists are creative like this, right? They won't even know they're doing it, but they'll put a different CD in the ancient CD player. That will suddenly they'll get new ideas of direction in their art or in their design. This new generation is I don't know what's going to happen with them, right? Because what's happening to them now with the phones is their formative music experiences that will impact their lives 20, 30, 40, their whole lives, right, will be impacted by the music that they're experiencing now. And the environment they're experiencing it in. It's not a community environment. It's a solitary, individual environment for them. So I don't understand how it's going to impact them. I don't think anyone does. And the next generations, who knows if it'll be the same technology that is warping everything or not. But the whole idea of standing in a field at a music festival and meeting somebody you've never met before, that's not happening, or it's happening less and less. I heard a really, really sad, it's the deeply sad statistic. In the UK this year, You know, the big concerts, the big music festivals, the Glastonbury type things, but there's quite a few of them. The huge music festivals with the world's top musicians and artists playing. These are big, big events with high quality, good acts, the opportunity to interact and meet with people who are coming to these events from all around the world. This is like this is what I'm talking about, standing in a field and meeting somebody and making a new friend, or even not, just like talking to somebody from some different culture as the music is playing and the golden threads are wrapping around. And you're talking about music and you're talking about how good the band is, but you're also connecting on a human level with the person from some other place, right? So that's not happening. The big festivals in the UK, they've canceled so many because they couldn't sell tickets. And the big famous ones that should be sold out by now and usually are, but they're not. And so the companies that put these things on, these are huge promotion companies now, I bet. And they're big companies. They're promoters. They've done this for years. They know what they're doing. In this case, I was listening to an economist, Will Page. He specializes in concerts and music, the economy of concerts and music. And he was saying that these festivals are doing market research. Well, they're studying why the ticket sales are going down. They're trying to understand why they're not selling as many tickets, even though they have these stellar acts and nothing else has changed really. Of course, the results came back that the ticket prices are too high. Oh, that was a primary factor why people are staying away. The youth are staying away from these festivals. But another answer was they had no one to go with. Isn't that sad? They had no one to go to the concert with. That's why they didn't go. They don't have a real person to go to the concert with. That's deeply sad, I think. So not only are they being deprived of music, but of live music, they're being deprived of community that can be achieved through live music. And the technology is doing this. And that's not healthy, I don't think. What do I know? Yeah, they had no one to go with. But in my case, I guess, I would go by myself. Like, I had no social skills either as a kid. Which kid does, right? If I'm going to a concert as an 18, 19-year-old or whatever, I'm just an 18 or 19-year-old. I have no wisdom. I'm just going to this concert. I just want to go, watch the band, and while I'm doing that, other stuff is happening there, The ability to feel community, to see other different people, to talk with them, to engage in groups over a positive thing, right? Instead of a negative thing. It's like these days it's all protest, this, protest, that. In the 90s, we protested with music. We used music to protest. We went to events to protest. Okay, we didn't actually hold up signs at these things. Well, later we did. But in the early days, it was about getting away from that shit and going into a warehouse and dancing to some DJ you'd never heard of before. Or maybe you'd heard of him before, but the next guy was fucking killer, right? And you've been a fan of this other guy for your whole life. Or maybe you went to some little shitty restaurant down the street with some, looking for a partner, a date, or maybe looking for somebody, and you wound up seeing a band playing on a small stage, that was like fucking Justin Bieber or something, just starting out. Like these things, this is what music does. And as a result of these experiences, the people develop art, or they harness these experiences to use them in their own personal lives in different ways. I'm only speaking about art today, but it does impact design. The design is not about music. Some of my designs are about music. I make turntable platter, Technics 1200 turntable platter dot jewelry. I make Yeah, turntable weights, we're still working on those in sterling silver, to hold vinyl on turntable platters. Like, so I do that. But generally speaking, my designs aren't music related, but it impacts the flow of the design and the way the design looks and the way it feels and where you can wear it. And this is important. You can like stand in a field wearing this. Right, and you're gonna look great, and there'll be a kind of Zen thing happening because, there'll be a connectivity to the community. The design idea came from a kid wandering around a stadium, and listening to James Brown, and now it's the end result is standing in a field at some festival in the UK, around on a belt or on a necklace, hanging on a necklace or whatever. There's a kind of roundaboutness to it all. But I think the software, it's a cultural software that we need that pulls us together. And music is that. Music can do that. Music is important. Music history is important. That's why I want to preserve my photography collection of the Canadian rave scene and the early Canadian electronic music scene, because, people of the future are going to need to see that, I think. But also it was an important time, and it made many, many Canadians who they are today. And in your country, if you went to raves or whatever in the UK, it made you who you are today. If you listen to that music, or if you love hip hop and you went to these live hip hop gigs because that's what you like, that's impacting who you are as a human being today. And then whether you use the music as a balm later in life to bring back memories of a better time, or you use it to create pots on a pottery wheel, in the playing in the background, or you mix it up to alter the colors in your painting. There's all kinds of ways to use music. Once you're working on art, you can leverage your previous experience with music again, but on the same record. I often play the same record over and over and over and over and over and over. I didn't think anyone else did that. But it turns out a lot of us do that. Many of us do that. It's beyond past what the song is as a song. We just keep playing it over and over and over. It's like trying to rewrite code in our brains, because we know on some level the song is so important. There's something in it. It might not be in the lyrics. It just might be in the melody. It might be something, might be the bass line. It might be something in it that we need to hear. So we play it over and over and over to get it. Or at least I do. And I know a lot of you do too, whether you're an artist or not. And I know it drives our partners crazy when we do this. So wear headphones. But it's just an indication of how music is a software. Music is a cultural software, and it can bring us all together if we let it. I just hope the culture, today's culture can figure it out. They will, or they won't, whatever. That's, I guess, why history is important. You can look backwards, and even if you ignore it, but you should at least know what it was. There are answers, I think, for today's new generations and the generations coming in music, whatever music it is, whatever genre it is, however it's consumed. But there's one caveat: it has to bring people together. It can't be consumed in isolation. It can't. Even headphones is like wearing on a subway train, right? Everybody's wearing headphones. Everyone's isolated. This is like the phone. This was the iPod started all this off. And it's like, once we put the headphones on them, we got them. They're not going to be talking to anybody else, or what? They can't even hear what the other person is saying, right? But in a field, you can hear both. At a concert, you can hear both. At a DJ gig in a dripping basement, you can scream in somebody's ear, right? While the beats are playing. This happens. Music is the cultural software of art. That's what I think. Anyway, that's the show for today. What's going on? Ed's coming down. My amazing casting, my friend and probably the best precious metal caster in the country is coming down to visit today on his way home to Toronto, and so that's going to be nice. I'm excited about that. I'm going to show him some of the work, some of the finishing and stuff that's going on in the shop, and it'll be nice to see him. And what else? Oh God, the fundraising. I've only got like 3 weeks left to raise 50,000 Canadian dollars for this digitization project. Go to preservethebeat.com to see what it's about. Go to Indiegogo and search for Preserve the Beat, and you'll see the project. And it's a film digitization project. So we're at right now about 9,000 or 8,000 Canadian dollars, but we still got a long way to go. And there's only less than 3 weeks left. So please donate if you can. Even $5, $10, $20 will help this project and preserve music history, Canadian music history. That's it. I'm going to get out there and water the plants because it's going to be a hot one. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. You can see what we do at tribe.ca. Send us an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith.